artist behind the door. Makes you think there's too many artists.
Well, you know, as I said, when I was a painter, I mean, I sell some work, and that's good, but it's not enough to survive. I work with a gallery in Chelsea, and I'm in the process of expanding that and establishing a relationship with another gallery. You know, every artist thinks having a gallery is like the panacea to their career, and you know, it doesn't work that way. I mean, I've been very fortunate to have a lot of exposure and show and all that stuff, but making a living, I used to teach, and now I do some work with a foundation for an artist.
I could actually, because I lived in St. Petersburg, Russia, and I could go on the street and make portraits and make tons of money actually. I just got bored in 2 weeks, but there's still some people who are still making those portraits. Being a professor in the academy, it's a nice profession. And then coming here to San Francisco, since it's very popular and the positions are less available, or I should say not available at all, so I started to teach out of my studio.
The secret to any form of art, it has to be your passion. This is definitely my passion, and there's nothing else I wanted to do. Making money in it is totally insane. To art and eat is very difficult. On the other note, I was able to make time to buy vacant properties. I rehab properties. I rehabbed this property. Pretty much, with very little income.
I wanna make my life just making and selling my work. So being part-time gives me still like freedom to make my work and not be so involved in the school politics.
I never kind of looked at it as a means to money, ever. I do construction, landscaping, do grade work, dirt work, drive equipment, cut stone, set stone, lawn care, work at a radio station, I was janitor, I taught yoga, adjunct at universities. And so part of it is to stay flexible enough with my swarm of part-time and seasonal work to be able to then travel when great opportunities arise like this.
When I moved to LA, I became a music teacher there also. So that was my income while I was trying to gig, and I would take random gigs from, I didn't realize at the time when I first auditioned for this part, but I was basically playing violin in a strip club. That was one thing. And on Sunset Boulevard, that was embarrassing. I didn't really tell my parents about that.
All of my teachers were like nominating me for scholarships and stuff. And my advisor was like, well, why do you want to go to art school? You're going to end up flipping burgers. And I relayed that to one of my art teachers, and he almost got her fired for saying that to me. But at the same time, like, it's the only person who ever said, tried to give me some sort of a reality check.
In Ghana, it is really something all families are willing their children, to be in a white collar job, a profession that would, they would come out very clean and, not like a carpenter or, it's not really something which is very much admired by a lot of people. My parents were not really educated, but they wanted me to have all the education. And at a point in time when I said to them, I want to build coffins, they were like, no, you can't be doing this. You should go to school. You have to be a journalist or something. So I really have to fight back to be who I am today.
After a while, I was doing construction. I was making $11 an hour and for Scroogey bosses. And after a while, I realized, I'm not even doing art, I'm doing construction, and I'm gonna struggle to live in a ghetto warehouse. So that's when I took my job at the Department of Defense Army They put me in budget. I'm not sure why. Failed algebra 3 times. So here I am now, member of the middle class. It's not very fulfilling doing budget for the Army. It's a much different story nowadays.
First, regularly like paycheck comes in September, right? Because I started teaching September. And so every year, the summer is tight, like always hard, and I always come to, I have this much money in the bank account, and do I wanna buy cigarette? Do I wanna buy banana? I do always like come to this much like a clothes, like yeah, I need the food perhaps, just to quit that.
The job that I have now is the golden handcuffs where you know, doing any art stuff would profoundly decrease my income and, you know, car payment, rent. You know, I got a kid all the way, so yeah. I try and do as much painting as I can outside of work nowadays.
Well, I'm really lucky to have, my husband works full time. So ever since my son was born and since I got this residency, he's been supporting us. He's been the major breadwinner. I mean, it's been great to have that burden off my shoulders because I used to always have a full or part-time job and be an artist, but I'd like to be able to contribute in a way that was more regular, because now it's just when I sell work, then, you know, I make a little bit of money and contribute, and I teach here and there, and so that's a good income.
I don't know, somehow I've just gotten into this weird rut where it's like someone offers me a class and I'm like, yes, I will teach that class, and then I suddenly realize that I'm teaching 4 classes and holding down another job and trying to make work. So it has meant that my social life has just dropped off the face of the earth. The other aspect is that, you know, I have a boyfriend of 4 years now, and he has a similar schedule of like working at, you know, multiple schools, doing different jobs, also working at a coffee shop. And we don't see each other unless we make a conscious effort.
I would love to get into a relationship, but it would be very tough for her to really understand, because at least in a year I have to move like 2 or 3 times. And I do that not because I enjoy doing it, but that is part of my heart. But I will definitely get married.
When we were coming to London and we knew that I was going to be the primary studio worker for 3 years, Elisa made a real sacrifice. But we knew we were having a second daughter, and so she made the sacrifice to let me to be in the driver's seat for the 3 years, which was a big deal. But we knew that when having a younger kid was going to be demanding on one of us, and chances are it's going to be their mom, and so she really took one for the team to plan on spending time away from the studio.
I think it's harder for me to build up some or any type of relationship, because from one place to another, and it's always like it takes 3-6 months to build up some type of relationship, like with students or like professors or just casual friends. Then I leave. That kind I learned, if I really do love someone, then like I can't really focus my work. If I can eliminate being involved in a relationship, just teaching and making and that type of life that I do enjoy it, then I think I am the happiest person.
I had girlfriends early on that didn't understand the not wanting to go out and get a corporate job and you know, live in a shithole and so I could paint. Maybe it was a factor in the big breakups, but wouldn't do it any other way, really.
My ex wanted to have a kid and leave New York, but I've really worked hard to establish, I could contribute to a Florida family here, and so that was, and that was a sacrifice. It was a very tough choice, but for me, it was always difficult trying to create that balance, Saturdays maybe when it would be nice to go out and spend time with your partner. I was in the studio or something, and I think it had some sort of effect. I think that we had discussions of it, and it's about. I think that's another thing is it is important to have a life outside of your studio. But I think there's a difference between sacrifice and suffering. I don't think you have to suffer. Those days are over, and it's a bit romanticized. No one's going to cut off their ear and live in a garret. You know what I mean? But you make sacrifices, that's for sure.
It's doable. It's fine to have kids. As an artist, you're so involved in your own projects. It doesn't matter what age you are, you're always going to be working on something, right?
Well, I got knocked up, essentially, because I was a dumbass. And, but it was a good thing. I mean, my daughters are lovely. So I did have, it was sort of the time where being in the 70s and being maybe 24 years old and having gone through I had these goals. I wanted to be a sculptor, I wanted to go to the academy, and I did this and I did that. And then it was, but now maybe I should have a child. This is one of those things that women do. So I did that.
I was fortunate enough to have a woman that tolerates me. And with that, the family kept me in balance, probably kept me alive. I mean, I love my children. I had 3 wonderful daughters that are stupid smart. And luckily, the girls were the family I didn't have. So I really worked hard on my family. I wasn't there as much as I should, but I took them. I figured out ways that my family could be part of my life. For example, I did 25, 30 years at a summer camp in Connecticut. So my kids only knew summers in Connecticut.
I always thought growing up that by the time I was 30, I would be married with kids. And I mean, I'm close to 40 and I'm not anywhere close. I'm still single. I don't have any kids. And so it really does weigh on my mind because it is something I want, but it's so hard because getting to a point where it's a crossroads, where I'm gonna have to decide, do I wanna keep touring or do I wanna sort of quit that life and have kids? It's really tough because I've worked so hard to get to this point, and then to give that up and figure out what's the next step or what's my career going to be next has been really difficult.
I remember some of the thoughts after I was pregnant was that there was a serious moment of panic, and because in a certain kind of, in a way, I kind of realized that a lot of that was going to end. Sorry. That a lot of it was going to that whole thing was going to have to stop for a while. And for a long time I thought, well, this is just going to be a hiatus. I'm going to have this child and then, what's going to happen is whatever. But I'm going to be able to do all of this stuff. And I didn't have the tools to do it. And I tried very hard, but it was a very difficult time, and the marriage didn't work out.
Yes, when you have a family, you're kind of tight. You know, you don't want to go to the residency because you just can't. You cannot bring the child there, right? So there are certain things that might not be available.
I mean, I do have a lot of long-term goals for my work and wanting to, you know, have big shows and things like that, but I don't feel like that all has to happen right away and that I should be stressing about that instead of spending quality time with my son, because that's a big challenge, is not feeling guilty when I'm either with him when I feel guilty like I should be making my work, or making my work and feeling guilty like I should be with him.
Being a curator and working with artists, I know how those people have to work, and they cannot have their children in the studio with them. They have to hire someone to deal with the child. You know, it's a whole different kind of thing, because that's your livelihood. You have a gallery exhibition coming up and you need to produce 24 paintings and you need to produce 50 works on paper, and it's got to be done by a certain time. And you cannot have your child come to you and say, "Mommy, I have the sniffles." It's like, no, there has to be a nanny for that. And I've known women who have tried to balance those things, and it cannot be done effectively. It can't be.
Finding it very hard to really spend time with my daughter. I do spend some time with her, but not as much as she wished. She is 5 years now, and I think for the past 3 years it's been very tough to share something, and that is affecting her academically. And the problem was I haven't stayed more than 2 months or something. Normally it should be 6 weeks or something, but I've stayed more.
When we weren't at the summer camp, we were someplace traveling related to the art. One summer I won the Philadelphia Independence Grant, and I had three months in North Adams, Massachusetts. My daughter came up to see me. She says, "Dad, you're crazy." I said, "Why do you say that?" She says, "Dad, you're not making any sense." And I was sleep deprived because I had been up for a couple of days and I hadn't talked to anybody for 2-3 days. And I think when you're developing at that level, it's real interesting if you have a family that can pull you back. You know, because I was gone, but I did some great work. I did some innovative work that's still like, what is it? You look at it today.
At times I'll have kind of like panic moments of like, oh, I gotta make some work, I gotta make more work. But then when I can reflect on that and know that nothing I make is gonna be better than spending time with my daughter, you know, and that when she, you know, as she gets older, I think your time then starts to, you know, open up a little bit, you know.
All the little things about life, including about my artwork and my, you know, being an artist, are not as important. My child is the most important thing, but that also really sort of takes the pressure off in a good way.
It's not like those other careers. I mean, how many women who go to the Art Institute of Chicago, how many of them say, well, I'm 23 and I'm going to wait until I'm 38 to have a child, because this is that hump period where I'm going to make my career move. Because it's so nebulous. The art world is it's so varied. I mean, it's like you could wait 35 years and put every ounce of your energy into it and not have that end result.
I'm actually freezing my eggs in the next month, and I'm looking into different ways of having a child, whether it be adoption, whether it be a donor. I'm looking into all those different options because I realize that not having a kid is something that I will regret if I don't do it.
I think for about 10 minutes on a Saturday morning in about 99, I had this real like 5 or 10 minute thing. I was in my late 30s at the time thinking, oh my God, I really should have kids. And then it was gone. So I don't regret it. I mean, I have lots of friends who have kids. I have 7 nieces and nephews who I love dearly. But I'm not really someone who lives with regrets.
A lot of artists, a lot of my peers, my friends, are similar to me, are single, older, you know, I'm 50, right? So, and they're, you know, either in a relationship or divorce, and other friends of mine who are artists have kids, and I could see, you know, a couple of cases where that has really taken over their lives and their careers, and you know, there's personal frustration there on their behalf, but everyone's different, and other people have been able to handle it and done very well. So it's all, you know, everyone's different.
You know, I've sort of gotten to the place I've always wanted to, where I'm playing in arenas, 2 shows a day for millions of people every year, which is exciting, and it's a total adrenaline rush. But I'm starting to realize that success for me is more the idea of having freedom rather than having the money. I mean, the money, you almost have to have money to have that freedom to be able to travel, to do what you want, and to be able to work for yourself. But I'm realizing that success is the sense of freedom.
Now, we equate successful artists with what their auction prices are and how much you're selling and who's buying what and what collections you're in. And, you know, that's a very small percent of artists out there. You can't, if that's why you're doing it, you're just going to go insane, because it could happen, and it'd be great if it does, of course. I mean, any artist that says they don't want to be commercially successful by selling the work I think is full of shit, because we all, you know, want it to sustain itself.
I spent a lot of time in this, and I invested this, and I ended up, you know, getting in the little tiny world of what we do, well known in my own little pond, you know, being a big fish in my pond. I feel like, well, did I waste my education? And it's like, no, I didn't. It's not like I lose all that stuff. And it's not that I don't want to make work, but I'm trying to figure out a lot of stuff about it. And part of it just is there's 24 hours in a day. You know, I have to earn a living, part of it. That's the unfortunate truth. I'm not a trust fund baby. You know, wouldn't that be nice?
It was Charles Searles, Al Loving, William T. Williams, and like my big brother. I said, man, you know, I got the kids at college, man. I just did, you know, over $100,000, $160,000, and I'm broke. I said, man, nobody's giving me any play. Nobody's looking at me seriously. He turned and stopped. And he stopped. He says, wait a minute, James, how much money did you make? How many paintings did you sell? He says, man, there's nobody selling that amount of work. None of us. And I said, yeah, but I'm still not famous. He says, James, it's got nothing to do with it.
I'm not sure that there's like a lot of value in being a household name artist, because as soon as you are recognized as being really successful, there's this funny conundrum that happens where it's, as soon as it becomes really comfortable and interesting to the world at large, it becomes maybe less challenging and interesting for the artist. So we measure success by if we can go to the studio every day and make things and sell them and pay the bills, but never feel like we're going to work.
It's like Thomas Kinkade. Thomas Kinkade is very famous, and I think his paintings are fucking awful. But hey, he's got galleries in the mall. I don't want a gallery in the mall. So, you know, it would be nice to have fame and money and dignity at the same time. But I think sometimes that's got to go for the famous, being famous.
I was able to figure out a formula. And that formula was that I was not going to be an artist that painted the same painting for the remainder of my life. in order to be marketable, because African American artists still had difficulties at the highest level. It had nothing to do with the work, it had everything to do with racism and bigotry in the art world. You know, it applied to women as well. So I figured out I was going to do 3 or 4 or 5 different levels of art. I was going to do the art to eat, art to pay the mortgage, and the art for me.
The reality is today as well. It's not just doing the work in the studio, but there's, I mean, let's face it, there's a highly commodified and commercialized aspect of the art world. And we're all products of our time and got to engage on that level as well. I mean, I'm not great at it, many artists aren't, but whether you call it self-promotion or representation or getting the work out, it's, you know, it's part of it. And so that's a struggle, you know.
I think the outside world might look at artists as kind of parasitic hipsters, or even worse, posers, that there is nothing productive that we contribute to society. I have an aunt who was appalled when I got a grant to buy a camera, and she's like, they just give you money to buy a camera? Like, I work for my money, and you know, everything is subsidized in some way, and I don't think that the arts deserve any greater subsidy than something else, but I'm not asking for a handout, but a little support would be nice.
Because of my palette and because of my style, I was able to make work that was marketable. And then when I couldn't be in the best galleries in Philadelphia, I set out to create my own gallery. And I had very good advice. One of the things I do is try to have repeat buyers and nurture patrons. It's very important to have resale. People that are nurturing your career, nurturing your talent.
Telling myself that I shouldn't take it personally, just let go, just one of it, and like just apply another one, and it never, but those rejections never discouraged me.
I think artists sometimes don't realize their power. Like I said, I'm a shaman. This city told me that I had no recourse for pain and suffering after I had a stroke, lost sight, sound, speech, and mobility momentarily on my right side from the stress of them taking this building. I said, okay, I'm an artist. So, you lynching me? I'm going to show the world that you're lynching me, you know? So I called the picnic of the PRA, the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority. They will destroy overnight what took you a lifetime to build. Build it anyway.
I had this conductor in high school, and he was this character. He had this British accent, and he just would tell stories and anecdotes, and he was crazy and amazing. And he said, I don't care if you make mistakes. I don't care if you fail. That's not the important thing. And he said, when you make a mistake, I want you to say, how fantastic. And I was like, well, that's kind of odd. But it really stuck with me. And going forward, when I was, as a musician, you're rejected all the time. You have tons of failures. All this stuff happens. I mean, it happens all the time. And I tried to keep that in my head. And I said, as soon as I didn't get, a part or, into a certain gig, I tried to remember that, oh, how fantastic. What can I learn from this situation?
Artists are people who comment on the time that they're in. And so you have to be, the energy that it takes to be an artist, to really be a thinking artist is, it's strenuous. It's like, when you get older and you're like, do I have the energy to do this? It's like, I think I stopped making art altogether, not altogether, pretty much when I left New Mexico and moved to New York, because the job in New York was so labor intensive. And although I looked at a lot of art and did a lot of stuff, my art was then reduced to almost instinctive drawings on envelopes and Post-its that would be at the table when I'd be talking to Barbara, and I would talk and I would illustrate what I was talking, literally on the backs of envelopes. That's how it got down to.
Life of an artist it's a gift. Not everybody is born as an artist. I always respect the ones that, no matter what, they still do what they love to do. They don't orient themselves on what audience needs or what's in fashion right now. They just do because they have to.
To any of my students, the first question I always say is this your passion? If this is not your love, this is not your love affair, this is not your life partner, because ain't nobody gonna love you, nobody cares. And you gotta have strong conviction. Nobody loves you as much as you. If you don't love yourself, you don't love getting that paint on your hand or whatever it is in terms of this craft, don't do it. But it's very self-gratifying.
I never feel more engaged and enthralled than when I am in the midst of working on a piece, bouncing back and forth between different, I have to go sew something, I have to paint the backdrop, I have to make this costume, I have to write a script, I have to, just that constant problem solving and engagement, I feel so alive in that moment.
When I have to talk about to students for their future, when they ask, so how's life being an artist? I don't want to say it's tough. Shouldn't do that. I don't want to tell them like that, but at the same time, they need to know the reality, but also I want to leave some type of hope. At least happy. I think that's what matters, at least to me. And I think value is different person to person.
I try so hard, Amber. I am always working. I never have time for fun. I don't have any fun.